Now we have more people here, we can get started.
I went to school and.
We know when they're ready.
Short guy.
Good evening, everyone. We want to welcome you to our Tuesday with the Doctor, our second one that is in person. My name is Elder Annette Barnes, and we want to welcome those who are with us online as well as those who are with us in person. And so we have some special guests again today from the Russell Sage College. They're all behind me here. Hope you get a hold of the team. Thank you, thank you. Welcome them, good. They will be presenting to us, sitting is the new smoking, so everybody must stand up for this entire presentation. So we hope this will be helpful for you or for someone you know. You can always watch this later again as well, if you want to catch up on something you missed or you want to share with your friends. So our speakers will give a presentation and they will take questions. I understand this is going to be an interactive class this evening. And if anybody is watching online, you can put your questions in the chat and we will try to get to those as well. So I am going to let the Russell Sage students introduce themselves and turn the time over to them.
I'm first.
Sorry.
I am Katrin Ramsey, so I am their orthopedics professor. I have them all year. This is a new group, so some of you are returning faces. Thank you for coming back from the last one. I'm very excited. So these are my future colleagues, and these are the best and brightest that are going to be taking care of us as we get older. And they worked really hard on this presentation, so I hope that you enjoy it. And feel free to interrupt and ask questions and challenge them because we're raising the bar. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tamara. I'd like to take a moment to thank you guys all for taking the time out to come watch our presentation and listen to us speak. And then everyone else is going to introduce themselves. Hi, I'm Krista.
Kevin, Austin, hey Sean.
Amy, Hagan, Alyssa,
Sarah.
Jess, Rachel, Ashley. So our presentation is sitting the new smoking. So our roadmap, we wanted to just point out how our presentation is going to go. So first it's due, it's really sad, we sit too much, we don't move enough, and then it goes on to the gloom section. So inactivity has some serious health consequences, and then we get to the bloom where our flower is going to bloom, and we're going to talk about the solutions that we can do to fix those issues. Okay, so adult statistics, as the CDC says that we sit on average 6.5 hours to 8 hours per day, which is quite a big chunk of our day that we're spent sitting. And the average adult spends over 55% of their working hours doing sedentary behavior. So what exactly is sedentary? It's characterized by too much sitting and not enough physical exercise.
So most of this presentation is going to be targeted towards adults, but we wanted to mention kids briefly. Does anyone have young kids in their life? Yes. Alright, so we know kids need a lot of activity. The US Department of Health recommends at least 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity every day. Unfortunately, less than 25% of kids actually meet that recommendation. And there's a lot of evidence that suggests kids today are significantly less active and less fit than kids in the past. One study of over 30 countries found that kids today take an average of 90 seconds longer to run a mile than kids did 30 years ago. So it's a big issue. And most of the research points to one main causal factor. Does anyone have any ideas?
Lack of recess.
Recess, that's a
That's
good
a
one.
really good point.
That's a good one. The other big one is increased screen time. So we know increased screen time in childhood leads to lower aerobic fitness, which can lead to increased cardiovascular disease risk in the future. So it's really important that we promote sports and active play over screen-based entertainment. And that's a little video of my nephew there, who just joined a T-ball team. He has no interest in baseball, but he loves how the uniform looks, so.
So Tamara mentioned earlier that we sit on average about 6.5 to 8 hours per day. So I just wanted you guys to self-reflect on that about how often you sit in a day. So yes, and then I wanted you guys to raise your hand who sits at least 2 hours at a given time each day. Yeah, so probably all of us, whether we're students in a classroom we're studying or working, or just binge watching our favorite TV show. So as time passes, we're kind of just in the same position. So we're gonna talk about that today, and research does show that when we sit more than 2 hours at a given time, it does cause body aches, pain, discomfort. It does cause a lot of that in the lower back, the upper back, shoulders. Have you guys ever felt that while you're sitting? Yes. So yeah, and then sitting for a very long time also causes bad posture. So we're also going to touch on that a little bit. So yeah, sitting is a huge health risk. So we're going to go ahead and dive into that today.
Okay, now that she brought that, all the negative stuff up, I think everyone should stand up, take a little break, move those legs around. Perfect. There we go. If you want, you can stand, but you're more than welcome to sit down. So I'm just gonna talk some more about some negative aspects of sitting. So some things are. Gotcha. So one of the studies I actually looked at, it talked about how prolonged sitting can reduce blood flow, and some of the other things like reduce energy levels and reduce musculoskeletal discomfort. So when you sit for a long period of time, we're going to demonstrate some of these things later, but like with your posture, some of us like slump down, some of us, our legs are crossed and stuff like that. There are several studies that show taking just like little breaks like we just did now, just checking your posture and stuff like that can help improve that.
So we're gonna do a little activity on the way you sit and different postures affect your body. So I'm gonna have everyone keep your feet flat on the floor. Now you're gonna sit in your chair. You're gonna slide your bottom kind of close to the edge of the chair, like this picture here. So you should be kind of there and just sit upright. So when you're doing this, you're putting a lot of weight on your feet. So now the load that your body has is being put on your feet. Now we're gonna do the second posture. So you're gonna slide your bottom kind of like halfway into the chair. And you're gonna kind of just slump back, like relaxed. If you want, you can even slide a little bit forward just so you're like just in the chair. And that posture now is putting a lot of load on your trunk. So now instead of it going to your feet, it's going to your trunk, and that's the main load that's being placed there. Or your upper body. And now if you guys slide, have most of your bottom all of your bottom in the chair, and like most of your thighs, and sit upright, and you can even use the back of the chair for support. This is the best posture when it comes to sitting, because now you're putting an equal load on your feet and your upper body. So this is the best posture. So we don't want to like sit at the front of our chair, nor do we want to sit like slump back and relax. The best one is kind of an upright posture and sitting with your feet flat on the chair. We're going to do a quick demonstration on, I'm going to just grab a chair, on the optimal posture, and like what's the best posture. So I looked at a study and looked at over 500 different physical therapists around the world, and these were two postures that they most commonly selected as pretty popular postures, what they think is good. So I'm going to just have Ashley come sit, and you guys can do this along with me if you'd like. So what you're going to do is, again, you're going to have your bottom mostly in the chair. You're going to sit upright. Usually, so we want a little bit of a little curve in your lower back. So if you have a chair that's not really good with lower back support, you can just take a towel roll and just roll it up. Or you can even buy they're like $15 to $30 on Amazon. They're like these little rolls that you can place at work, so you can have some lower back support. And then I'm gonna move your beautiful hair. And then for your shoulders, you want them, a lot of us sit with like a very hunched posture, kind of up forward. So you want your shoulders to kind of line up right where your ear is. So you just like pull that back. And then for your head, you want to do like a little chin tuck, because we tend to have a very forward head just because of technology and phones. So you want to just like bring your chin and tuck it back into your neck. And so that's a pretty upright posture. That's recommended to have less pain and aches. It is a really hard thing to do consistently all the time, especially if you're not doing it. So what you want to do is just check yourself, remind yourself, hey, let me just fix my posture. The more you do it, the better it is, because your body is just going to automatically kick in, like fix your posture. And then after a while, you'll have a pretty good posture if you just keep practicing and reminding yourself.
All right, so just by a show of hands, how many of us probably spend at least 10 minutes looking at our phone today with our head down? Me included. So as little as 10 minutes of that prolonged neck flexion, so that position of looking down at your phone, has been shown to increase the demand of neck flexion muscles by up to 44%. This can alter the relationship between active muscles and passive tension, which normally work together to provide stability. So with muscles that are being overworked, fatiguing quicker, and structures not communicating efficiently with each other, we have a decrease in spinal stability. And this can lead to things like increased neck pain, increased back pain, and further dysfunction along the road. So kind of just building off what Tamara said, sitting straight up, shoulders rolled back, head tucked down, maybe phone brought up to where we can like eye level instead of head brought down to the phone, can all benefit us.
And we just had a test. What other joint does that influence? Jay, so anybody has like jaw problems or pain at night, right, chewing problems, that can be related just to neck posture. So something to think about.
Okay, so then just taking a quick dive into mental health, as that's becoming a very prominent topic in society. And I just first have a show of hands of how many people have experienced some level of stress, anxiety for any number of reasons. Yeah, you're definitely not alone. Unfortunately, research has shown that people who have any sort of mental health symptoms, such as like depressive disorders, sitting more can increase your risk of more severe symptoms, as research has showed that increased sitting time of over 6 to 10 hours can increase the onset of major depressive disorder, as well as increase severity of symptoms. And then also the onset of moderate psychological distress, which is like a combo of stress, anxiety, and depression. And then you can it also increases your higher perceived stress. So just how stressed you think you are. And as my colleague had mentioned, in terms of blood flow, there is a decreased blood flow generally throughout your body when you're in a sitting posture because you're always pretzeled up. So also what's getting less blood is your brain. So you're getting less nutrients to your brain. So as a result, you're kind of just like rolling the snowball down the hill and you're getting it can amplify and magnify all of your depressive symptoms. So, stand up. So even with everything that's been said, you still might ask yourself, why break up sitting time? What the effects does it produce for us long term? And the answer to that is that it fights infections. So there's an increase in the red blood cells and white blood cells in the body. It also decreases the risk of diabetes, which it correlates with lowered insulin levels, as well as less fluctuations in blood glucose levels. It provides a healthy strategy for weight management. And this just has to do with getting up, being active, improving our cardiovascular function. There's also a decreased risk of heart disease and stroke, which really correlates with our body being able to get rid of the bad cholesterol. So just by a show of hands, does anyone know someone with heart disease, stroke, diabetes? Yeah, so this is a very prevalent thing. Unfortunately, there are many solutions that we can do to help these people, and one of those is breaking up sedentary time.
Would they listen to you if you told them?
Take a walk with me. Let's go shopping.
Exactly.
So what can we do to combat the harmful effects of sitting? We can perform 300 minutes a week of moderate physical activity or 150 minutes a week of vigorous physical activity to kind of induce some of the effects that we talked about on the previous slides. So when talking about moderate physical activity, the activities that fall within that medium intensity level, they're going to increase your heart rate. And when talking about vigorous activities, these are going to be very a substantial increase in the amount of effort and energy needed to do these activities, and they're going to involve a very rapid heart rate increase. So these are some examples of different activities that fall within the moderate and vigorous categories. But what's unique about these categories is that they're very subjective from person to person. So what one person might perceive as being a very high intensity exercise, another person might perceive as being very moderate intensity exercise. So does anyone have any specific activities or hobbies that they like to do that they think would fall into one of these two categories?
Or if you do any of those activities.
Yeah.
I don't think they can read them. It's pretty small.
So for moderate, we have water aerobics, tennis, cycling, 10 miles on a flat terrain, general gardening, ballroom dancing for moderate. And then for vigorous, we have race walking, running, tennis and singles, aerobic dancing and swimming.
None. Where's regular walking fit in?
Right.
I would say more of a moderate, but also it could be a light intensity exercise depending on the person. That's kind of where the baseline falls depending on the subject's habitual physical activity level, I would say.
The speed at which you go, some people are just generally fast walkers, some are just slower, so.
So a general rule of thumb, if you're moderately exercising, you should be able to have a conversation, right? You should be able to talk, but maybe you have to catch your breath while you're talking. That's moderate exertion. It goes with a cardiac formula. So vigorous would be you're not able to sustain a conversation. So if you're out walking, sometimes my dog doesn't move. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna leave you here and jog down and come back. Like, you wanna get to the level of moderate intensity exercise if you've got no cardiovascular underlying conditions, right? If you're generally healthy, you wanna make sure that it's a little bit of a struggle to have a conversation while you're exercising.
So we're just gonna do a quick little recap over the last couple of slides. So I'm just gonna say an activity and you guys are gonna share whether you think it's moderate or vigorous. So pushing a lawnmower would be.
Moderate.
Yes, yes. Jogging would be an example of.
Vigorous.
Yes, in between, yes, because it really depends on the person that's doing it, the distance, the speed at which they're doing it. If you have someone that's jogging a mile who's never ran before, that could be very vigorous. Someone that runs a marathon every month, if you told them to jog a mile, it'd probably be pretty easy. So the last one, hiking uphill with a backpack would be, yes.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna do a posture check-in. Did any of you guys keep up the posture that we worked on in the beginning? Okay, so how about we do that upright posture again, shoulders to your ears, tuck in the chin, sit upright, great.
So now, if you're willing and able, we are actually gonna get up and you're gonna choose a different chair to sit in while I give my slide presentation.
Wow.
Want to swap cushion here?
So many of us work or sit for long periods of time, especially at the workplace or in an office. So what you just did was a transition from sit to stand. So a study I looked at was that during your workday, if you added more sit to stand, it helped decrease your sitting time. So once you get up and you're in the standing position, you can take a walk around, you can do a lap in your office, take a walk outside if you have your lunch break. And also if you have a smart device, so phone, computer, or an Apple Watch, you can set a reminder or an alert on your phone to go off at a certain time every single day to add a little break into your day so that you remember to get up and moving. And then in the study, they found that between 8 and 122 minutes were reduced in sitting time when they added more of the sit to stand. So now we're gonna get up again, if you can and are willing, and we're gonna go back to our original.
So, and we actually, as physical therapists, we use a sit to stand test as a determinant of functional capacity, right? So that there is a time frame, 30 seconds, and we count how many times not using your arms, you can stand up and sit down, and there are norm values for age group and fitness levels, right? So it does really count to be able to get up. The less you do it, the less proactive you become with your fitness level. The less you do it, the more deconditioned you become. So really, you might take it for granted now you're all popped up and moved around. But as you get older, really important to sit, stand, maybe more than once.
We can find those levels like by Googling, we can find what.
We can send them to you and you can post them.
We're gonna stand more in church faster.
More songs.
Some people don't like that about church. They're like, oh, I gotta stand up. Oh, I gotta sit down. Oh, I gotta kneel. But yeah, it's good. Hey, the man of papers is aligned with keeping you healthy.
That's right.
Okay, so I know we talked about how we all sit for a long period of time. Does anybody have pain when they sit for a long period of time? And you're like bottom, your back, anywhere? I know I do, yep. Okay, so does anybody have a cushion that they own to purposely sit on? You do? That's great, perfect. So what can the proper cushion do for you? It can improve dispersion forces. So what that means is when you sit, I don't know if you can think about it right now, do you kind of feel your bottom, like there's some weight on that? So a cushion can help reduce that. Also, when you sit, gravity and your body weight is compressing your spine, also contributing to some of those dispersion forces that can cause pain. The proper cushion can also improve your posture in sitting. So some of them are really fancy and they can set your hips to a certain angle and your back, and it can mimic that perfect alignment we were talking about with Tamara. But you don't necessarily need a cushion for that. Like she said, you can use a towel roll and that's just as effective too. So if you have a cushion that disperses those forces, improves your sitting alignment, you'll have decreased back pain, shoulder pain, butt pain too. So, yeah.
So speaking of comfort throughout the day, like Sarah said, another thing that we can use is height adjustable desks. So this is a great tool to help you get you switching positions throughout the day. Like Krista mentioned earlier, about 2 hours of sitting, you start to feel those aches and pains in your body. Same thing with standing for 2 hours at a time. Usually you start to feel some pain in your legs, maybe your lower back. So height adjustable desks are great because like I said, you can switch up if you're sitting and then you're like, okay, I want to stand now. You can keep working. Another thing that you can do if you don't have these like desks that you can actually move up and down, just find a higher surface somewhere. If you're working on a computer or something, take a break, get up, type on your computer there. I also looked at an article that looked at the effects of height adjustable desks on cardiometabolic and vascular health. And it found that using these desks can reduce sedentary time by 90 minutes, which is great. And it also looked at femoral flow mediated dilation, which is how much blood flow goes through your arteries. It found that the use of these desks over a 12-week period increased femoral flow mediated dilation, which is a great thing because flow mediated dilation is a risk factor for cardiovascular disease. So just getting up, standing, taking breaks from sitting can really help your health overall.
So I'd like to just ask everybody first, how many of you guys here work a desk job or a job where you're sitting for a long period of time? Have you guys ever used a standing desk? Yeah, very nice. So building on what Rachel had said, I'm just gonna speak about some of the benefits of a standing desk. So giving yourself that time to stand up, research has shown that it actually helps increase your engagement with your work. I'm sure as you guys know, sitting for a long period of time, and if you're working, you kind of get, you kind of zone out a little bit. Maybe you're no longer interested in what you're doing. So having that time to stand up can, revitalize you, increase your focus on what you're doing. It can also reduce the musculoskeletal pain, so your body aches, especially in the shoulder and neck region. Like I said, a lot of us when we sit tend to be slumped over, shoulders forward. So standing up kind of naturally brings your body into this position, kind of offsetting what you've been doing while you were sitting. It also improves your vascular function, so your blood flow in your lower legs, like Rachel had said, as well as in older adults, it has also been found to decrease your blood pressure. So if anybody has a friend or family member that works a desk job and they're having issues with their blood pressure, a friendly suggestion might be to have them stand up every once in a while at work, because it has been shown that it can decrease blood pressure. And another thing you might be able to do is, once you're standing, if you ever want to take it another step, feel free to get out, walk around the office, walk around your desk, do something. Walking obviously is better than just standing, but standing is also adequate as well, especially compared to sitting.
Hello, guys. So, as we've said before, sitting has been known to help decrease our mood, and we've had increased depression symptoms, and we've also had aches in our bodies. Also with sitting, our posture usually becomes slumped, we get that anterior head, our head moves forward. So a great way to help decrease some of those symptoms is yoga. So how many of you guys heard about how yoga can help just enlighten our mood and help give us good breaks in between the times that we sit, especially when you're working all day? Yeah? And whoever feels like they need just like a good energy boost, but like you don't have the time to go on like long walks or go on like a big run. So what is great about yoga is that it's very like in your home. You can do it very fast and it can help with our decreased time. And so with yoga, but a great way of doing it is breathing and also a few movements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead you in a box breathing. Okay, are you guys ready? So what's great about that is we're going to be controlling our breath, because with sitting, sometimes we forget that our breathing also needs to be controlled, and that helps with like our lungs, it helps with our diaphragm and our abdomen, our stomach area. So let's go ahead and before we start breathing, let's sit up a little bit. Let's work on that posture. Yeah. So with that box breathing, a box is 4 sides. So we're going to make a square. We're going to breathe in for 4 seconds. We're going to hold it for that amount of time. Then we're going to breathe out for 4 seconds and we're going to hold it. And I'm going to help you guys, just if you guys forget those 4 seconds, I'm going to be holding up my fingers. Okay, are you guys ready? Okay, let's go ahead and breathe in. And breathe out. And hold. And we just completed our square. How hard was that?
So easy.
I thought it was easy, sometimes it can be a little hard. And I think this exercise is great because it reminds us that we do need to work on our breath, because that's something that's also just as important. We need to get that oxygen, we need to get that good blood flow. And so also, we want to be able to break up our sitting time. We want to be able to expand our chest, work on that posture, also in standing. So if you guys are willing and are able to, let's go ahead and let's stand up. We're going to do a nice mountain pose for those that are comfortable doing that. And what is great is that we have this chair because, as we talked about, we sit a lot, but we can also use our chair for support. So the first one I'm going to do with you for this exercise of yoga is mountain pose. And have you guys heard of mountain pose? Yeah, so we're going to stand up nice and straight. We're going to do hip width apart, and my colleagues here are going to do it with us. And now we're going to put our palms right in front. And like, let's think about our chest. Let's think about holding in our abdomen. And then let's tuck in our chins, just like we talked about that forward head. And what's great is that what we've talked about in yoga from research is that it helps improve our mood. It helps refocus us. It makes us feel more enlightened, especially because with sitting, we do a lot of mindless at tasks when we sit. So this is really great for just getting our minds a good boost in our emotions. And so just doing this for like just 10 seconds, 20 seconds is really great. It helps center you. And now, are you ready for a little bit more of a challenge? Okay, great. So as we said, movement is really great and also helping just increase that core control. So if you guys would like to, we're going to do a warrior one pose. And so what I do suggest for people that might have a hard time with balance, using your chair is really great for this as well. So let's go ahead and let's make some space just so that we want to make sure that we have great. And I see that chair in front of you. Let's go ahead and move it up a little bit. Great, awesome. So, and if you ever need a little bit of support, feel free to hold on to that chair, okay? So we're going to bring our right leg in front of us, and then we're going to turn our back leg to a nice little angle. Yeah. And so we're going to square our hips. We want that posture. We want to open up that chest that we talked about. We want to feel enlightened and feel strong. So then we're going to just square our hips and we're going to bring our body forward, just like that, just as far as you feel like you can go. And then for a little bit more of a challenge, let's go ahead and raise our hands up to the sun or to the moon or whatever day it is, whenever you want to do that yoga, that nice warrior one. How are you guys feeling?
Good.
You look great.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, so yeah, doing some nice breathing exercises, doing a nice mountain pose, warrior one helps recenter us, helps us refocus, and also it helps with our bodies as well, and making us feel stronger and like
the question at the very beginning, do we think sitting is the new smoking as media has claimed? So if I could have like a little poll, so if anyone who thinks it is the new smoking, if you would please raise your hand. Okay, well, fortunately for us perpetual sitters in this generation, that it's not the truth yet. Like, it's still obviously not a great thing, as we've said, in terms of circulation, things like that. However, in comparison to smoking, which has phenomenally more research on, smoking is still worse than sitting. In this graph here, it's a little just simple, looking at the risk of developing different prevalent chronic conditions or the mortality associated with them, including the purple bar for cardiovascular disease mortality, the yellow for all cancer mortality, the pink for lung cancer incidence, and the blue for type 2 diabetes incidence. So in looking at this graph, the major significant finding is that the incidence of lung cancer is significantly associated with the highest level of smoking compared to the lowest, which is the left part of the graph. Whereas the highest, even the highest of levels of sitter does not even come close. So while sitting does pose major health risks, smoking is still very terrible for you. It's still much worse on the spectrum. However, it is very important to maintain physical activity in whatever mechanism you can, just to support a healthy body.
So the blue looks equivalent, right? What is the blue?
Or higher.
2 diabetes.
Type 2 diabetes.
This one is.
looks higher for sitting.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit higher,
It
yeah.
was not statistically significant, but however, it is visually, like, there were more people that have type 2 diabetes in the highest level of sitter versus smoker. So as consistent with a sedentary posture, you're less likely to exercise, I guess, and you're also more likely to have obesity, which is a risk factor for type 2 diabetes. So there is slightly increased risk associated with the highest level of sitter. However, it's not necessarily statistically significant yet. However, more research is coming out that will give more light onto this.
Okay, so now it's up to you to tell me what you can do to help break up sitting time.
Bathroom breaks.
Yes, perfect.
Except that's sitting a little bit sometimes.
Depends on your choice.
Okay. Sometimes I get up and go see a coworker rather than calling them.
Yeah, that's really good. Anyone else?
Take a 15 minutes break twice.
Yeah,
And then sit.
definitely take your breaks.
Yeah,
When they give you,
walk around and.
when they give you those breaks, you take them. Anyone else?
My office, I don't have a printer in my office. And that was a conscious decision to force me to get up and walk all the way around to the office printer. My coworker goes to the furthest water fountain to fill her bottle.
Smart. That is understandable. Any other things you guys can think of?
What
Park
about
further back.
alarms in the morning? Like some people, I have my phone right next to my bed, so my alarm goes off, I can just turn it off. What about putting your phone somewhere else? Has anyone done that? I mean, I haven't, but.
Park further,
One day.
park further back in the parking lot.
Yeah, that's
That's
a really good one.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Anything else you guys can think of when you're, doesn't have to be at work, it could be at home.
I've noticed having an electric car, the parking for the chargers are always the furthermost spot conceivable at any location, so it has increased walking just by having that.
So you guys did bring up some of the things that we talked about, and that I have here. So again, if you're at work and you have, meetings, you can ask for a walking meeting instead. If it's okay with your boss or whoever is doing the meeting, you could just walk around the office and have that meeting instead. Again, you could do a short walk during your lunch break or your 15 or 10-minute break that you have. You could park far away so that you need to walk further to get into your office. You can even at home, like when you're putting on the TV during like a commercial break or even just watching the TV itself, you just like stand up, move around, maybe jog in place, do some jumping jacks, something to get you moving while you're sitting. Because I know with things like Netflix and Hulu, we like to binge watch, especially because there's no commercials. So it's really easy to do that. So this is like a good way of you still binge watching, but like adding some activity while you're binge watching. Again, you can do any of your hobbies, sports, anything that you like. If you like basketball, whatever is like joyful for you, you can add that in. Activity doesn't need to be just going to the gym or walking. It could be anything that's fun to you as well, just as long as you're moving. Again, you can set alarms on your smart devices. So Apple has stand up. It tells you to stand up during the day. Again, you can do a stretch or yoga, some of the poses that Kagan showed us earlier. Like you said, getting up to use the restroom, but instead of using the restroom closest to you, use the restroom that's furthest away, or even on a different floor. If you have different floors, you can use that because you're going up and down the stairs. Again, if there is stairs, use the stairs if you're able to, rather than taking an escalator or an elevator. That's a good way to add in a little bit of activity during your day. And even just tidying up your home is like a good way to add an activity. So like spending 20 minutes just cleaning up around your house is a really good way. Plus it helps you clean your house. So it's two things at once, killing two birds with one stone. And if you like being outside during the summer, gardening or yard work also counts as activity. So, what will it mean for you?
So let me ask the audience, what gets in the way of you doing less sitting? Because these are your therapists. Actually, they're very economical therapists, they're free tonight. You're gonna tell your therapist, why is it you sit so much, or why is it you don't change your posture, or why is it you don't get up and move during the course of the day? And they're gonna come up with an answer and a solution for you.
I have postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So standing and sitting flares that all the time. Any position really, changing from any position.
That's a great
If I do it too much, I pass out. So it's a fine line.
So
of
that's
growth.
complicated for them, but let's see how they do it.
We'll start with the hurdles.
So.
It's an autonomic nervous system disorder. Basically, my computer's
Right.
broken. Yeah. So when you change positions, my body has quite a delayed response where the tachycardia kicks in, the blood pressure is like off, and so it triggers syncope.
But it's usually a bigger change, like from laying down to sitting or sitting to standing, or is it just moving an arm and sitting is my question.
Changing from laying down to sitting to standing, or any of those combinations.
Yeah.
Or doing either one of those for too long.
So because you have a specific syndrome that doesn't allow you to do like big movements, maybe even just sitting in your like chair and like doing like knee raises, that could be beneficial because you're still moving even though you're not standing up. Like that's still doing some activity, doing some stuff with your arms, like moving your arms up and down, like up, like different directions could be helpful as well. Plus it's like working on fixing and strengthening some of that muscles for posture. That's really good. And again, just doing breathing exercises while you're sitting, that's engaging your abdominals, your core, strengthening those muscles that really like get weak when you're kind of like slumping forward and like sitting forward. So I think those are good ways. If you can't do like big jumps from like sitting to standing consistently, I think those would be great ways.
And some of the sitting stuff that we kind of demonstrated earlier, like scooting back for a little bit, and I did notice that after a while you would move your leg, just even something like that, just little things will add up.
And also there's a lot of, like on Amazon, if you've ever seen those little cycling machines that go under desks. So that you can like, I believe they have gotten a lot more inexpensive. I'm not really sure. I don't really keep up with it, but I have looked into them myself previously. So when you're just sitting there for long periods of time, you can just like cycle or do like a little stepping machine. So you don't have to change your position, and it might be a good way to increase that blood flow.
Or without it, just sitting and holding and just kicking your legs.
Yeah.
Dance party, dance party at your desk. I would say, I read a phrase, what's the best posture is the next posture, right? So if the next posture for you is not great, standing up from sitting, what's another posture you could choose that would give you some benefit? So that's what you have to reframe your mindset like that, right? All right, well, who else has obstacles? We all have obstacles.
Yeah, so I've got a couple obstacles. So my chiropractor told me I should get up and move around every 45 minutes, which is just completely crazy, right? There's just no way, right? So I have to sit and do a lot of focused work. If I get interrupted in my focused work, it takes a little bit to get back into what I was doing before. So if I'm constantly interrupting myself, how am I also going to get my work done in a timely fashion? Also, there's very few meetings that are 45 minutes or less in length, right? So, that's one obstacle, right? You're sitting, you're doing focused work. You can't be getting up all the time. Second, I do a lot of driving, right? So if I have to stop every 45 minutes, I'm never gonna get where I'm going. So, you know, some suggest, so in that case, it's just like, you know, I'm just gonna drive straight there and I'm gonna get there and I'm gonna do what I need to do. Now, my chiropractor hates that, right? She hates it when I drive. She knows when I drive, because she's like, oh, you know, there's this, I'm gonna say this wrong, so you're gonna correct me, right? So there's like this pump at the bottom of your spine that pumps up spinal fluid or something, and she goes, sometimes it gets locked. And I have to like open that back up because I've been sitting too long. Something like that, and it goes through, and she says when it's locked up and that fluid is not flowing correctly, it can put you in a bad mood, right? You get murky and all of that. And I was like, oh, well, no wonder I'm feeling in a bad mood today, right? And so she pushed that out and she unlocked that. But how can I do that without like losing my focus all the time at work or driving and getting somewhere in a timely fashion?
I totally hear where you're coming from, when you need to get work done, and it's a big thing, cause life moves very fast. And sometimes like you gotta remember that your health also matters as well, and when you sit, especially when in your car, do you think about how you sit in the car? Especially when you said that your back and your spine like locks up, definitely like you gotta get that drive done. Sitting and making sure that like you're thinking about that proper posture. How is your tush like
I do
position?
stretch a lot while
Yeah?
I'm driving.
Does that feel better?
Well, it also keeps me awake. So yes.
And then when you get out of your car, like just like stretching, taking that walk around after that drive, that also helps just as much as well, because it's hard. I hear you're coming from, but doing just little things like that can help as well.
And I'm like the same way, especially with studying and stuff, feeling like once I stop, like it takes me a minute to get back into it too. So I understand where you're coming from on that. I would say like maybe if you can't do it every 45 minutes, when you get to a point in like whatever you're doing at work where you're like, okay, like I feel like this would be a good point to stop, just get up, move around a little bit. Even if it's not 45 minutes, every 45 minutes, a few times throughout the workday is better than nothing.
So they've done a lot of new research about, you know, what's recommended by the American Sports Medicine Academy about exercise, and that 150 minutes per week. It doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes here, 3 minutes here, 2 minutes here. So I applaud your chiropractor for trying to get you out of your rut, but then they just set a goal that's somewhat unattainable. That makes you probably like struggle a little bit more than you have to. So I would just agree, like when you can work it in, work it in. When you get out of the car, well, then before you go into your next thing, spend 15 or 20 minutes or do a little bit more, you know, at the beginning of the day or the end of the day when you're not so ensconced in brainiac activity, but just work it in, Yep.
And when able to, when you're taking a meeting for work, you can walk around if able to. I have coworkers who go up and down the stairs at the office while on a meeting to get more exercise or walk laps around the office building.
And I think that depends on what kind of device, so like
Well, yes.
desktop, or if you're using a laptop or your phones, because some meetings you can take through your phone or your laptop and you can just sit outside or stand up and just have your laptop out. Small
Mhm.
things like that, but once again, it depends on. your
It's
workstation.
difficult because we're usually looking at a device that we're all trying to, you know, spreadsheet or something.
Yeah.
So I can't just walk around the office unless I've taken my computer and then I'll trip over, it, right? Like, we're all looking at something together.
Gotcha.
Very few meetings are just chatting, for me, are just chatting, like, you know, in general. So that makes it a little bit more challenging.
And it also depends on the culture, right? They sit in my lecture for hours. And, you know, they don't move that much when I'm like throwing down a lot of information, but, you know, it's up to you guys to advocate where you work. Your health is really your most precious thing in life, your health, right? And so if you're not comfortable, like, call me and I'll advocate for you. I'll call your boss and I'll say like, well, you really need to get outside and walk during lunchtime for fitness. You really do. Right? You need to advocate for yourself. And maybe if you advocate for yourself, somebody else who wouldn't advocate for themselves benefits as well.
Not to pick on your chiropractor, but a little bit. I think any little bit of improvement is better than nothing. So I think when something doesn't work, it doesn't work. And if your bar has to be in a different spot, it has to be in a different spot. Like to me, it seems like it would hurt your mental health more to have a goal that never was gonna work for you. And then you just feel like not doing anything or not making any progress, because then you're just like, well, you know, oh well. So just finding anything that works for you.
Do you have a standing desk?
I'm not,
recommend that.
but I went to a campus that had one and I think I might move there. It's just a button too, wasn't even adjustable.
Well, going off of that, at your current job, even you have like any heights that are kind of like standing where you could put like a computer, maybe even just looking around the office to see if there's like a space. That you can just do that for maybe like taking one meeting during the day where you're just standing with like your computer. I know you said that it's hard to like, you're watching spreadsheets and walking around.
Yeah, we
Like
usually have
just,
like 2 or 3.
oh, okay,
screens of the
yeah.
show, you know, yeah.
Well.
I'm sorry to be
No,
complicated.
no, you're totally fine. So like, if work is really just not an option, just like other times, like when you're waking up in the morning, like we said, like if you can fit in 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, something matters. Even if you're brushing your teeth, maybe like moving around, like doing a little dance when you're brushing your teeth, that might like help you because you're doing more than just standing there. So you're just adding in little increments of exercise that at the end of the day, when you add it up, it does get to be like, you can get 150 minutes. I feel like we're so used to people saying you need to go to the gym or you need to do it all at one time. You don't have to do it all at one time. Like I said, tidying up around your house for 20 minutes a day, like you set a little alarm, you still need to clean up your house, but this is a good way to add in some physical activity. You like gardening outside, that counts. Mowing your lawn, that counts. So like all these things we don't think are activities that add into that like exercise that's recommended, but those are things that do add up and they are included. So I feel like you're thinking like every 45 minutes I need to get up and move and like do all this thing, but there's a lot of things throughout your day that you're doing, and even just adding in a little bit more, making it harder, could even just add even more time. So I wouldn't say, yeah, it's that's an attainable goal that she set. It seems like for you that's really hard. And so like thinking about it this way would be better, because now you're like, yeah, I'm doing that, like I'm tidying up my house, I'm adding some exercise in, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
And the more you do it, your body kind of gets used to it, so you're gonna want to do it. Or if you're sitting there for a while, you're like, oh, I'm used to standing around this time. You're like, okay, time for me to get up, even if it's just for like 5 seconds. So I think the main thing we're emphasizing is you don't have to set a certain amount of time or like go work out or stand up for 5 minutes, none of that. Just do a little bit each day whenever you can, little breaks and stuff, and then it slowly adds up.
How long does it take to change a habit? There's some research on it. Anybody know? It's about 30 days. It's about 30 days, right? So tomorrow is the first day of the next 30 days of your life. That's my challenge.
So your 31 days starts the next.
Any other obstacles that anybody wants to share? Anybody have questions? Oh, obstacle, yeah.
So
Make it hard.
if you have an elderly patient that can only walk 1 to 2 minutes, how can you get them to incorporate more exercise in their very sedentary lifestyle?
Good question. Do they use any kind of assistive device to walk or?
Walker and even a lift out of bed.
Doing movements and sitting, or like doing movements in your bed also is just as great. And that's like, it helps just get our range of motion, get our arms moving, making us feel more flexible. And honestly, that can also help them with then when they can get out of bed and they can walk. So just doing that little bits of movement each day, it's gonna build up.
Thank you.
Yeah, like going off of that, like there's a bunch of med mobility exercises that you can do to prepare yourself for the next posture. When you're getting out of bed, you could just slide your heel back and forth. You can try and kick up, like there's a number of things even with your arms that you can do to try and get yourself ready for that next step.
Even with the walker, just moving it back and then trying to catch up with it, little things like that. Also, if someone else is there, that'd be nice, someone just to like in case they're risk of falling or stuff like that, just for that extra support.
Also, going off of what Ashley said, you being there is definitely like talking with them and being engaged with them. I think a problem with our elderly is they don't get a lot of social aspects. And so you just encouraging them and being there with them might even help them to be more active, because there's someone there. Like, I feel like it's hard even just for us at this day and age to just want to do something if we're not doing it with other people, because you kind of get bored. And so like, if you're there and you're like, hey, grandma, let's move our arms while we're watching TV, let's move our legs like a little bit, and you doing it with her might even be like better, because she's like, oh, my grandson's doing it with me, let me do it with you too.
So make it fun, make it exciting, yeah, make it a game.
Question on the opposite side. Is it okay if you're on your feet for between 8 and 10 hours a day when you get home to sit down for 2 or 3 hours straight?
after standing for 8+ hours,
Yes.
for sure. You're gonna sit in one position, you can sit, have your legs out for a little bit, have the other leg out for a little bit, you're still moving a little bit, but you're just like, I'm getting a little bit of rest.
Yeah, you need a rest.
Yeah. 8+ hours.
I'd say, yeah, 2 hours, I'm okay with 2 hours. The problem with that is it's a slippery slope, right? Once I'm down, I'm down. Like that's, and then that 2 hours becomes like the next 3 hours or till bedtime, right? So I don't like that. I don't particularly love that slide, because it's like you drove your car all day really fast and then you just threw it in the garage. And so, yeah, I mean, you can definitely get up and take a little walk in between the sitting after you've worked all day, yeah. It would be good for you.
Well, here's an example, like if you're sitting on the couch, just getting up and like walking to your kitchen, like to break up that 2 hours of sitting to grab your dinner or like a snack. Like that would be good, because you're just getting up and moving and breaking up that like long sitting, and then you can have a seat back down and then relax again and eat your snack.
One of my favorite things to do when my legs are tired, from prolonged standing, is legs up the wall. So first of all, you have to be able to get down onto the floor, but if you can't get onto the floor, you have to have like a bed or a couch, right? And you want to just get in a position where, okay, I'm not going to dress for this, but where your legs are supported, and then that will help drain the whole lymphatic system, and that will help get rid of all the congestion. And that will help you admire my boots. But that's a nice way to reverse the effects of prolonged standing, right? So if you the opportunity, even to put your one leg up on the back of the couch if you're laying sideways, and then spin around and do it the other way, that might rejuvenate you so you can get up after an hour.
Slowly.
If you get
It's not like flat on their back, with their legs up in the air and all of that.
That's
They're
awesome.
Mimicking that, right?
That's a great position for legs retired from standing.
Yeah, so one of your slides mentioned, standing for over 2 hours is not or sitting for over 2 hours isn't good. Is it similar on standing, that after a certain time you should take a break from standing and change that position?
Yeah, so I found that in one of my articles, and it was like about the same thing as Krista said with sitting. Hers said 2 hours, mine also said 2 hours for standing. So that's why I focused on this sit to stand desk and just breaking up those positions throughout the day. So it was about the same 2 hours. Start to feel some pain in your low back, your legs.
Yeah, but most of the, as mentioned, is like office work. I do construction work,
Yeah.
some outside unlike.
I feel like it's a little bit different, like just static standing. But because if you're doing construction, you're moving around a lot, you're on your feet, like you can still get aches and pains, but it's not so much as if you're just standing, same forces, like maybe have bad posture, you know.
So like with a standing desk, you want to break up and sit for like a little bit and then stand for a little bit. You don't want to just stand all day, because you're standing very like in one position, right? Like you're a construction worker, so you're moving around a lot. So that's what's helpful with your movement. And if you're with a standing desk, I know you said you had like you used one before. So like with that, like do take breaks and do sit down and then go back and do standing, because not all standing for 8 hours is great either.
So this is terrible. Oh, yeah, sorry. Hips and shoulders stay stacked, and you're gonna recruit your core and have a nice string through your head, so you're up nice and tall, right? All this, exactly, yeah.
What's like a great way to help like remind you is like the whole like sit, like think like a string is like pulling you up, like you have a little string here and pulling you up, or like sit tall or stand tall like a tree. Like that's a good way. Like it reminds you if you're like, oh, and then you're like, oh, stand tall like a tree. Or you're sitting and you're like, oh, I have a string in my head. Let me just pull it up and fix my posture. Those are great ways. I do it all the time. Like I catch myself sitting and I'm like this in class writing notes, and I'm like, Tamara, fix yourself. Like you're bending a little too much.
So back in the day when they were like, stand up straight, sit up straight, all of those,
Yes.
that was actually good advice.
Yeah, it is. It was good advice.
What about these treadmill desks, which nobody can afford, but what about? So what do you think about that?
Yeah.
So treadmill desks are more beneficial than a standing desk, but like you said, they are expensive. So that's why I had mentioned, supplementing it with taking a walk around your office or your workspace rather than, purchasing a treadmill desk to use that. So it is more beneficial. It does come with increased benefits in terms of your, like heart and like cardiovascular health, but like I said, hopefully in the near future, they become a little more inexpensive and accessible to more people.
I've also read that asking the company that you work for, will you reimburse me? Will you help me with my health and purchase a treadmill, walking desk for me? There are companies that are willing to do that, reimbursements, and just ask.
Anyone.
That's a big segment of advocating for yourself. Definitely try and ask and see what are the employee benefits of your job, because that's definitely so important, and there are definitely companies out there, so, and maybe you might spark your company to want to invest in that or to help in the future. You had a question?
Yes, I will be advocating for that. I would like to, and if I don't get it, I will give you my job information. Like few smokers I work, and they take smoke break, and I tell my boy, what about not smoker break?
Yes, there you go. A walking break.
For that.
That's it.
Yeah. Yes.
Doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah.
Well, if sitting's the new smoking, maybe standing's the new smoking. I don't know.
We'll send you our PowerPoint.
Present it to them.
So one of the slides spoke about a proper cushion, a sitting
Yeah.
cushion. What is an improper sitting cushion?
So this is a gray area. So cushions are very individualized. People's body type, what they want out of the cushion. So I don't want to come out here and say, oh, get this exact cushion. But you can go to like stores. I know I went to Kohl's. I don't know if there's one around here. I'm not really from New York, but
Yeah, there's.
great. Like there was a bunch of cushions when I went home and I just started sitting on them. And I was like, oh, this one feels good. Oh, I don't like this one. So I think it's very individualized. If you find what's great for you, that's great, but what's great for you isn't necessarily great for the next person.
Right.
So the proper cushion is very individualized, so it's like.
So I know sometimes, like if you had bad posture or bad ways of sitting properly hurts.
Yeah.
At first, right? So in looking for a cushion. I might sit on a cushion and be like, oh, this feels great, right? But it's actually may not be the best one for me over time. How would I know?
I think, I don't wanna say I know exactly, I don't wanna speak out of my scope, I guess. But whenever we talked about correcting our posture, I try to do that in class and it hurts. I'm gonna give it up and be honest, it hurts. I'd say start incrementally and work your way up. But like, I don't necessarily know, oh, if you use this cushion and it doesn't hurt, that's bad. I don't wanna speak to that. But
Because regardless of the cushion, it's like what you do. So one
Yeah.
cushion might be good for you and it's like, okay, that's fine, but it's what you have to do. So you have to be like, okay, this is comfortable, but if you sit like this for a while, you're like, okay, that hurts. So doing it very slowly, like, I mean, for like 2 minutes, let me just sit up straight for a little bit. Then 2 minutes, let me just bend down a little bit. So we're not saying you have to sit up tall and perfect all the time, because we don't even do that in class. Sometimes we're like, can we please get a break? We need to leave this building. So as you please, just do little things. And like I said, each of those little things add up. And the next thing you know, you get up and you're like, oh, my posture, or I'm not in pain. My back doesn't hurt. My neck doesn't hurt. And you're like, all these little things are adding up.
And I would just say, listen to your body, right? So your body is giving you feedback for a reason. And if the cushion is making it worse, and you are a regular exerciser, then maybe go for screening with a physical therapist, right? Because we take a look at the whole body, all your flexibility, all your strength, how your muscles recruit, what your posture's like, what kind of movement dysfunction you have, habits, standing habits, going down the line. So yeah, I mean, if you don't know, like, we're here to help you, right? We're here to help you figure it out. And it might not be a lot of physical therapy, just a screening, like, oh, here's what I think might help you. Great, go try it.
Actually, Choice PT does free screenings annually and one's coming up this next month.
There you go.
That's one more, I never heard about like, lumbar support.
Oh, yeah.
Is that recommended?
Yeah, so you wanna have like a little bit of a curve in your back, so a great way is at home, like when you're sitting, you wanna like use the back of like a chair for support, but most of the time they don't really, I think this one is not a great example because it doesn't have anything at all. So you want something with a back, and then if the back doesn't like have like a curve, which most of our chairs don't, you can get, I think, like I said, they're like $15 to $23, like I looked it up on Amazon, so they attach to your chair, so if you work at a desk job, you can do that. If you're at home, you can just take a towel and just roll it up, and make like a roll, and you can place it under your back so that you, like, it's like your body is like contoured into that chair because of that towel roll, so like that's a great way.
And also for those people who driving most of the time, like other than that, does she need that like my car has one too, when I drive long drive, it really helps, you know.
Yeah, it helps, so you can put one of those in your car too, so there's like some that have like attachments, so you can attach it to the back, and then it just sit there, so like for you, like when you're driving long periods of time, that is just automatically fixing your back to put that like up there. And with like posture that we're talking about, there are some braces that you can purchase too, if you want like posture correction braces, if you feel like you're gonna forget. And again, like you listen to your body when it starts to hurt, it's okay to like relax. You don't have to keep an upright posture all the time, but like if you keep doing it over and over again, your body's gonna get used to it. Like your muscles are gonna get stronger the more you do it, and so it becomes easier for you to like sustain like a good posture longer the more you do it. So it doesn't have to be that you have to sit for 8 hours with a really good posture, because we don't even do that. It's just sitting for like 2-3 minutes, correcting it, reminding yourself during the day to like correct it.
The different chairs, so you have like the standing or the kneeling chairs, and you have the wall to sit on, and are any of those beneficial at all? Because you're stating about lumbar support.
I love Swiss balls because they're really good for pelvic floor recruitment and core stability. That dynamic surface will give you a little bit more of a workout. My big problem is furniture manufacturers, like in this country. Talk about Goldilocks, like the chairs are so big and oversized. Look at Keegan out there, right? So putting her on a big old couch, right? There's no way that she's gonna be supported. There's no way that her posture is gonna be upright. So that couch is off limits for her in my house. She has to have like a chair that fits her for sitting, for prolonged sitting, right? And it's the same thing in their dorms. The chairs in their dorms aren't maybe very good, right? The desk chairs aren't very supported. Like, it's super important to find a chair that you feel comfortable in, that you're. Usually we say, I'll let one of my students tell you, usually we say what? If you're in a good chair that fits, how many fingers go between the back of your knee and the chair seat? How many fingers? 2 to 3, right? And if you're in a good chair, what's the angle between this shin bone and this thigh bone? 90-degree angle. And if you're in a good chair with a good back, what's the angle between your thigh bone and your spine? Also 90 degrees, right? So there we go. And then we have that curve being preserved, the lumbar curve being preserved, which are, you can see for me, if I don't support my lumbar spine, that's my natural posture. Right? If I support my lumbar spine, see what just happened? Stacked everything. So furniture is a problem.
So that's a good chair.
No.
Not enough of a seat there. You had a good 5 fingers there.
Did you guys invite? That's my husband.
And you want to keep your feet flat on the floor too, like I don't think we realize that, like when we're at work or even at home, like you have like those chairs, they're height adjustable. So that's like a really good way of like, you just adjust the heights to make sure that your feet are flat on the floor. Like I know it's easy to do this.
And it's hard when you're short, like I didn't ever.
I often use a yoga block for that reason, because my feet don't touch the ground in our house.
Perfect.
Something off on a little bit of tangent, I know we got to increase in here, but there's something psychological, right, about having good posture and sitting up straight and standing up straight. And I think like the first time that I really did it, right, people noticed it, which means they noticed me a little bit more, which is very intimidating, because sometimes we don't want, when we're up straight and it's like we're out there, right? And if you're like this, it's like you're hiding. Right, you feel small, So what about, this may be completely outside of your territory, the psychological aspects of asking somebody to sit up straight and stand up straight, and which is saying, I'm putting myself out there, right? I'm having a presence now, because there is something psychologically different. You just feel like you're just really there, whereas at other times you can just hide away. So do you have any thoughts on that?
I would say like just, there's a time and place for everything, like maybe if you're not feeling so confident one day, you know. You can just kind of like hide back to how you normally do, but like we were saying, like with even just normal postures, like standing posture, sitting posture, the more you do it, the more used to it you get, honestly. And I know like psychological, it's kind of like a little bit different, but I think just like owning it and being like, yeah, I'm here and I deserve a place in this room is just great, and just keep doing it and then you get used to it.
And then knowing that you focus on you. Like, I know it's hard when you're like, yeah, everyone's watching me, but how do you feel? Because sometimes when I'm just sitting like this, I'm like, am I even happy right now? Like, how is my mood? So I think about that first and then go from there. So after you're like, okay, maybe sitting up straight, I feel better. I just feel like I can take over the world. And then you go out and people start to noticing that's a little different, but all these things are just not gonna happen in one day. So like a little bit each day.
Because I know sometimes tall people, especially, they don't want to be seen so tall, so up there and so like this, right?
Yeah.
But kids do this, right? Because especially if they're not confident, right? Or they don't want to be out there, they don't want to stand up straight. So how do you overcome that for somebody who's a child to be like, no, you're okay, right? You can stand up straight and be out there, like, because they may not be doing it literally for that reason. They're trying to hide.
And I think with kids too, like when you do that, you kind of do it in groups. So sometimes they're like having other people do it. I'm like, oh, Rachel's doing this with me. Okay, I feel good too. Like I can do it. And other kids see that. Once again, it like depends on age ranges. They're like, well, I wouldn't be like that. Let me do something like that, you know, but some kids, it's not like that. But I think doing group activities will help a lot.
And also individually at home, right? So oftentimes, when I work with children, I'm doing just yoga postures one-on-one with them, right? Getting them to open up through their heart. In terms of like sainthood and religious philosophy, some people say Mother Teresa, you could feel her presence like a block away, right? Her openness in her heart and her posture and her loving kindness, right? And so that's what I tend to think about posture, not necessarily about how confident I am, but what do I want to send out? What kind of energy do I send out to other people, right? That's what I think about.
There was a question about chairs. But I thought it was gonna go here. The kneeling chairs. Thoughts? This is bad poison?
I think it all goes back to like how long you're doing it. I think basically we're trying to say, don't stay in one position for too long. Because even kneeling for a while, you're kind of in that 90-degree angle, and after a while, your legs are starting to hurt. That blood flow is not blood flowing. So it's like standing up for a little bit, but that blood flow.
And also think of your knees, because we're not putting up as much pressure on our shoulders, but we're also putting some pressure on our knees with those kneeling chairs. So just as Ashley was saying, it depends on like how good that feels and how long we're doing it as well. We want to be protecting all parts of our body, no matter what position that we're sitting in.
Because you can have both legs and then one leg up and still kneel with one leg. So just little things like that, and then stand up and then back down.
And it comes back to the whole thing of the next best posture. The next posture is the best. Sorry, I'm saying this so bad.
The best posture
is the next posture. So it's just saying that we need to move. I think we're so used to being sedentary and not either just sitting, laying down, or doing something for just really long periods of time. And the whole idea of what we're just saying is we just need to break things up. Do things maybe in like an hour and a half, 2 hour increments, and just like stand up, sit back down, walk around, sit back down. Like just don't do it for like 8 hours at a time or 6 hours at a time, which I feel like it's really easy to do now these days with technology. I feel like it's very easy to just sit there and not realize that 6 hours has passed and you just watched 10 episodes of something. Like because it's so easy to be like mindless and do something, or being on our phone scrolling on like TikTok or social media. It's like really easy. Like not gonna lie, I do it all the time. And then I'm like, oh, it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. I should probably get to bed. So it's just like to do like a different posture, just get up and move is all we're just trying to say, like break it up.
All right, on that note, I can't leave you sitting, so everybody gets up for one final Take good care of it.
They're ready for their next position.
Next, here's the best question. So we want to thank you guys for coming, and the next one, we're not doing live because it's right before Thanksgiving, but we have one more coming, and the topic is.
So you remember? You
Healthy
don't
aging?
remember? All right,
Healthy
the next
aging.
topic, all right, the next topic is taking a holistic and healthy approach to aging on November 26th at 6:30 p.m. because it'll be just before Thanksgiving. And we'll be seeing all of our relatives, so this will be a really good topic to know something about. So we just want to thank you for being with us online. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all. We're gonna have them back again next year as well, I believe. Maybe they'll tell us how to sleep next year. They'll tell us how to sit and tell us how to sleep. I was just thinking that. That's another good time.
I'm doing a research project on that right now.
There you go. All right, so thank you all for coming. You can find more information at our website at joyoftroy.org. Good night.
Good night.